Welcome back to Buy or Sell, the series where you pitch me your predictions for the theme park world, and I either buy or sell them and explain why. If you want your idea considered for the next video, leave a comment below starting with buy or sell. In this episode, we look at the timeline on the Six Flags Legacy memberships, if we'll see the closure of another air launch coaster, and if and where we can possibly see the American version of Falcon's Flight, the world's first EXA coaster. This is Buy or Sell, episode 29. Let's start with Coyote Bravo and Mr. SR Ardor. A third Mattel Adventure Park gets announced in 2025. Even before the first Mattel park opens in Glendale, Arizona, they already announced their next park in Kansas City. That's risky, but not unprecedented. While Kings Island was still being built, Taft Broadcasting got busy planning King's Dominion. They figured it was going to be a big hit, and they were right. But will the same thing happen for Mattel? There's a few different angles to consider. For one, is Mattel a good theme for a park? I think so. They got two coasters themed to Hot Wheels, and they're behind a whole bunch of other toys that everyone knows and loves, including Barbie. You talk about IPs driving theme parks. Disney and Universal have their own portfolio. Six Flags has Bugs Bunny, Cedar Fair has Snoopy. I think the same thing can happen with universally known toys. Then you got the location. Glendale is outside of Phoenix, a place with a young population and grossly underserved by theme parks. Kansas City has Worlds of Fun, but that's a growing area and can support two parks. I'm buying this. I think it's a good business model. Their first two locations seem good, and I think they'll both succeed. It only makes sense to keep the ball rolling and find new markets. 2025 might be soon for a new announcement, but it won't take long. Nolan NBA and roller coasters. S&S will make a custom 4D free spin by 2030. S&S has had a tough time with their coasters as of late, but one of their models that doesn't seem to have a lot of issues is their free spin. Maybe clients move away from their launch coasters and their hyperloopers. Yeah, that might be off the market for a while, but their free spins check a lot of boxes that parks want. Small footprint, extreme ride experience, visually impressive, and I wouldn't be surprised if S&S starts offering new elements. Maybe a barrel roll, maybe a vertical loop, or maybe just something that's twice as long as the ones they offer now. I'm buying this. We haven't seen a lot of variants in the first 10 years of this model, but that doesn't mean they're gonna rest on what they got. That doesn't seem like the S&S way. Joe Hartman. Six Flags Legacy memberships are phased out in 2025. The Six Flags Cedar Fair merger was announced late last year. They were looking at the second quarter of 2024 to finish it off, and based on everything I've read, it seems like this is still on track. I don't know what's gonna happen from here, if they're mobilizing behind the scenes to hit the ground running, or if they're just waiting around to see if this actually goes through, and once it does, they take it slow. If I had to guess, it's probably the latter. I bet they take it slow and give it one more year, so I'm selling this. The longer this takes, the less time they have to organize a plan to roll out new passes. Maybe we all got 2025 under the current pass system, and by the end of 2025, they introduced the new chain's 2026 passes. The Unknown 088, Nighthawk becomes an ace landmark for being the world's first flying coaster. Nighthawk opened as stealth at California's Great America in 2000, and even though it wasn't officially the world's first flying coaster, it was the first large-scale attempt from a major manufacturer. For all intents and purposes, this is recognized as the first, and for that reason I'm buying this. The flying coaster has become a major player in the coaster world, starting with Vekoma. B&M had their own take on it, and that really focused on flying a lot more than Vekoma did. Zamperla did a compact portable version, and Vekoma followed up their own model with new age flyers. First Stingray, then Fly at Phantasialand. Expect a lot more of these launch flying coasters in the near future. I think Nighthawk is important enough to be recognized as a trailblazer. Clown Lord. Lost Island will fail within 5 to 10 years, either closed for good or sold to another chain. Lost Island's been around for 2 years now. The first one was really bad, but back then they didn't have Matugani. In 2023 they did, and they had a better year but still couldn't turn a profit. This park situation is kinda confusing. It seems like Waterloo, Iowa isn't in a great spot, but their water park has been successful for years. People who know the area insist location isn't the problem. The real problem is advertising. They need people to know they exist before they start seeing success. I'm selling the park going under, and I'm selling the park being sold. I think they have enough on their side to make this work, especially because of the fact they made their water park work. If they keep adding on to Lost Island, a risky investment I know after 2 years of losses, but that's the only way to bring people in and keep them coming back. The park was great, but there's a lot of wide open space there. It could use some filling in. I don't know what they were expecting. Maybe this was part of the plan, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they know what they're doing. Gameplay Master. We'll see an EXA coaster in the US in the next 10 years. For those of you who don't know, an EXA coaster is one with a height or a drop of 600 feet. Intamin coined this term, being responsible for the world's first EXA coaster opening in 2025, Falcon's Flight at Six Flags Qiddiya. This is the world's most ambitious coaster project, 640 feet tall, 155 miles an hour, almost 14,000 feet long, and it's something we never thought would actually be brought to life. But lo and behold, it's actually being built. Will it open? That's yet to be seen, but right now it's a safe bet that it will. It's also a safe bet to sell this coming to the US over the next decade, and I'm gonna do it. But I'm not as sure as you might think. Magnum XL 200 was the first coaster topping 200 feet. 11 years later, you had Millennium Force at 300, and it only took 3 years to crack 400 with Top Thrill Dragster. These things happen fast. Sometimes you can't even imagine what the next level could possibly look like, and within a decade, it's at your home park. It's not a great sign that it's been 21 years since we broke 400 and we're just now getting past that. And we're doing it with a coaster that only Saudi Arabia would be crazy enough to build. That doesn't mean some other coaster can't cross the 600-foot mark in a more reasonable way. If you asked me about the 500-foot mark in 10 years, I'd buy that. But 600, I don't think so. I would love a time machine to see what coasters look like 50 years from now, just to see if they've gotten bigger or stayed the same size. Anything is possible. I bet nobody in 2003 thought it would take 21 years to cross the 500-foot mark. But for the sake of argument, let's say some park in America does get one. Who would do it? Obvious choice is Cedar Point. They break all the height records, but let this one get away from them. Maybe Zamperla finds a way to get them a 700-footer by 2034. Both Busch Gardens parks seem like they might take a crack at it. I don't know of any height restrictions they have from the city. The odds of Magic Mountain getting one with all those new homes nearby, probably not gonna happen. But I could see this going to Great Adventure, especially if they end up shutting down Kingda Ka. Also, kind of a wild card. Maybe Codaland does something crazy if the park takes off. Some crazy racing themed coaster that goes 150 miles an hour and hits 600 feet. I could see it, and it would make Codaland a worldwide destination. Hershey Knobles Lover and Golf Ball says, SeaWorld opens another park outside the US by 2030. SeaWorld just opened a park in Abu Dhabi last year. This was their first international park, and they picked a good spot for it. The UAE is a hotspot for theme parks and tourism. Assuming this is successful, I'm buying them expanding out. I don't think there's another hot new market they haven't explored yet, but this venture into the Middle East could encourage them to look into a new park in Japan, or China, or Germany, or maybe they throw a park into Perth, Australia, across the country from the other SeaWorld park they have nothing to do with on the Gold Coast. I wouldn't be surprised to see them open up another park somewhere else in the Middle East if they find a good spot. Maybe they don't, and Abu Dhabi was a special exception, but it's realistic enough for me to buy. As for buying existing parks, I tend to think they won't, but with the Six Flags Cedar Fair merger, maybe a park like Discovery Kingdom goes on the market. They also might turn a smaller park into a new Sesame Place, just like they did in San Diego. It would not surprise me if they did something like this around their existing park in the Austin-San Antonio area. Illusionism. Mindbender at Galaxyland will never get an extreme throw replacement. Mindbender came to the indoor park in 1985, spent 36 years there, and was torn out in 2023. This was a massive looping coaster, 145 feet tall, 4,200 feet of track. Just insane for an indoor coaster. Now that it's gone, Galaxyland has 3 other coasters, a Gerstlauer Spinner, a Family Zero, and a Dragon Wagon. There's a big empty spot in the park, and a big empty spot in their lineup. This park is run by the 555 Group, the same company that runs the Nickelodeon Universe parks in the US, and those parks have extreme coasters that fit perfectly in the indoor setting. I'm selling that they never get an extreme replacement. There are too many good options, and they exist in those 555 parks. A Gerstlauer Eurofighter would be a perfect addition here. Also, something like Sandy's Blasting Bronco would be a good fit, but I'd put money on the Eurofighter, and I would be surprised if it doesn't happen in the next 3 years. Joe's Toes and Donovan Johnson. Steel Curtain closes for good in the next 5 years. Steel Curtain has been a mess since it opened, and that's weird to me. You got a lift chain, you got brakes. It doesn't seem like it should be that complicated. But then you hear the whole story and it's a bit more scary. Apparently, this has structural issues. I heard the project was rushed, it was too much coaster on too little land, and after 5 seasons of constant problems, Kennywood is shutting this down for the entire 2024 season and trying to fix it once and for all. Maybe they reinforce the structure, add more supports, rearrange supports. Whatever they have to do, I'm sure S&S can do it, so I'm selling this. But if S&S tries and fails, having shut down the coaster for a whole year, at that point, maybe the coaster does get torn down, but I don't think that's gonna happen. I think they needed to stop putting band-aids on the problem. They had to take it out of commission and fix the root of the problem. It's gonna suck for everyone coming to Kennywood this year, including me, but it should do it a big favor in the future. Cuban Coaster Nerd. Another air launch coaster will be gone by 2035. Speaking of S&S, and on the heels of another one of their coasters being closed down forever, Do-Dodonpa, let's explore this question. There are 6 air launch coasters currently in operation. 2 are in the US, Max Force and Powder Keg, and 4 of them are currently in China, one being under construction. One of those in China is Bullet Coaster. That had a bad accident late last year where the train rolled back and collided with another train. If this accident causes the ride to be shut down for good, and based on what I could see on their website, this isn't listed so it seems like it's still closed. I'm buying one of the other Happy Valley parks to close their S&S launch coaster in the next 10 years also. Extreme Rusher and OCT Thrust SSC 1000. The American ones are probably safe. Max Force has its problems, but it's only 5 years old. I'd hope it has at least 20 years in its lifespan. And Powder Keg is pushing 20 years old, but it's one of the most popular rides at Silver Dollar City. Barring major mechanical problems, I think these stay. Huntley 23. Do-Dodonpa will be reimagined by S&S and not just torn down. Keeping on our S&S theme, let's look into this possibility. Do-Dodonpa was a very simple concept. Launch you at an insane speed, make a huge turn, and then go up and down a top hat. This was their second thrust air coaster, and it was pretty much the same as their first, Hypersonic XLC. This one just had the top hat after the big turn. In 2017, that got replaced with a vertical loop. Regardless, the draw of this ride was the launch, the next snapping acceleration of 0 to 112 in 1.6 seconds. And that actually, allegedly, caused Next to snap. People claim the ride gave them broken bones. It seems like they closed it because of this, and I don't think they could ever reopen it with a launch anywhere close. If they kept it, it would lose what made the ride what it was, so I'm selling it. Maybe they replace it with another launch coaster with a more dynamic layout, but that'll use LSMs and will probably be from Gerstlauer, or Intamin, or Vekoma. Parker Roland. Upper tier Cedar Fair and Six Flags parks will see slower investments after the merger. The new chain is going to have a lot more parks to manage, but they'll also have a lot more revenue coming in. I think they're going to start cutting out their lesser parks, so what they're left with will be the ones they really want to keep. I'm selling a slowdown in investments for their upper tier parks. I think the Cedar Fair parks will keep getting major coasters every 4 years. Cedar Point, Kings Island, Carowinds, Canada's Wonderland. Then you also have Knott's and King's Dominion in the second tier. And I think the major Six Flags parks will also see much better investments, and they'll probably keep their same schedule. Magic Mountain, Great America, Great Adventure, even the Texas parks to a lesser extent. Those already get coasters every 4 to 5 years, but now they'll get stuff that used to be out of Six Flags range. That's my theory. This will be fine for the big parks, neutral for the mid-tier parks, and could be very bad for the small parks. That's a wrap on episode 29. Let me know what you think of any of these topics, if you agree or disagree, and why. Also, don't forget, if you want your idea considered for the next video, leave it in the comments below, starting with buy or sell. Before you go, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I have a playlist with all the buy or sell episodes. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to love baseball. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.